Hello. Thank you guys so much for joining me here on the High Ground podcast. You guys all cosplay some of my absolute favorite characters, and whenever you're whenever you're cosplaying, normally there's some sort of connection to the character. There's a reason why you love them, and so that's why I do this, because I love talking to people about the things that they love. So I'm excited to jump into it. I want to start out by kind of going around in a circle. I'll start with Rick first, but I want to ask, who are you?
How
How
did
did
you
you
get
get?
in here?
Yeah. How did you get into Star Wars? And what is it that draws you in about Anakin?
Yeah. So first of all, thanks so much for having me, for having us. This is really cool, and I just I've been looking forward to it. Um, so my name's Rick. I am a cosplayer. I cosplay mostly Anakin. I've done a few other cosplays in the past, other Star Wars cosplays, but this is the one that I've really kind of owned and put a lot of effort into. I'm a member of a couple of the costume clubs, the Rebel Legion, the 501st,
Nice.
and that's been a big part of how I kind of got into the Star Wars community. I'm really active on social media and spend a lot of time collaborating with these two and creating TikToks and pictures and memes and stuff. And that's honestly what I do with my time. I put very little time effort into work or family or friendships or anything. I do mostly Anakin, mostly Anakin stuff, and everything else is secondary.
That's awesome. Um, yeah, and so why Anakin specifically? Is there?
Yeah. So Anakin, I would say, was always probably the most interesting character to me. So I want to clarify, not he's not the character I most admire, because there's a lot of things about Anakin that we shouldn't, admire. But for me, like when I've watched the original trilogy, I was always kind of fascinated by the idea that, here's Darth Vader. He's this kind of fearsome armored villain, and he's juxtaposed with this idea that there was this human underneath who was once, a loving and caring father and Jedi and kind of beacon of hope. And I'm always fascinated by the idea of, like, well, how did one become the other? So, like, that's why Anakin has always kind of interested me. He interested me first when I saw the original trilogy and I wanted to know more about him. He interested me when the prequels came out and they kind of explained to us more about how he became who he would become later. And so, he's always been a really fascinating character for me. I feel like Anakin is kind of the vehicle through which George Lucas explores psychology, good and evil, how a good person can become a bad person. So for all those reasons, I mean, he's really just kind of the most interesting character for me personally. He's also everywhere. So, like, he's in the obviously the prequels, he's in the cartoons, he's in the original trilogy, and he has connections with characters all around, the saga. Um, yeah, and he's also kind of the butt of a lot of jokes now. So I appreciate that, because I really like humor. So, a lot of the content that I, kind of try to create is a lot of like self-deprecating stuff. So, it all deals with sand and not being a master, and the high ground and the low ground and younglings, and just kind of being whiny. So many reasons I enjoy Anakin.
Yeah, no, I like that a lot. I mean, because in a lot of ways, Anakin is start the catalyst of what we all love. So, yeah, I've always been a huge fan, and yes, he's whiny, but he's whiny because Luke was whiny first, and they wanted to draw a through line, back to that. And also, he had a lot of good reason to be whiny. So,
Oh, totally. Yeah.
um, how about you, Jason, or Obi-Wan Kenobi, as you're known? Who are
Sure,
you? How'd you get
you can call me
in?
Lebo. What's
Lebo?
the question? How to get into Star Wars or why Kenobi?
Yeah. Well, who are you? How'd you get
Oh,
into Star Wars? And why Kenobi?
okay. Well, I'm Jason or Lebo One Kenobi, or you could just call me Lebo. Um, so I happen to have a unique perspective on Star Wars, and that is I was molded by it. I saw the prequels when I was already a man. I was I'm old, and so I was born in 1969, and so I was 8 years old when Star Wars came out in '77, and I just remember just absolutely loving it, and um, it just really changed my life, and especially back then when we had science fiction, and I actually plan on doing. I started a new segment on my TikTok, which is growing up with Star Wars, and I'm going to talk about before Star Wars soon. And so we did have science fiction like Lost in Space, Superman, the original King Kong, even other shows. And so, but Star Wars really changed everything, just the production. And it's one of the, I think it's one of the first fandoms. I mean, I guess Star Trek came out first, but Star Wars, the way George did it with the toys and the tie-ins, I don't think there was like Burger King and McDonald's glasses when other movies came out until Star Wars. So as far as Obi-Wan, I remember as a kid getting cards and not being too psyched getting the Alec Guinness card. It's probably my second least favorite card. My least favorite card was the Stormtrooper. But when the prequels came out, and I liked the prequels, I think Ewan McGregor really just brought a new light to the character, and seeing how he's not a perfect Jedi and that he's flawed. And it just, he just became like a really super appealing character to me. And then over time, I began to realize that Alec Guinness was an amazing, he was an amazing actor before he came out of Star Wars. He was probably a huge get for George Lucas, but looking back at it on what a wise mentor he was. As far as why I cosplay him is, so I'm also in the Rebel Legion in the 501st, and so I first joined the Rebel Legion just as a generic Jedi. In the Rebel Legion, you have to go through a judging panel to get judged on your costume, for especially a face character. You have to have certain criteria. And I went in just as a generic Jedi, but everyone kept on calling me Obi-Wan, even though I was not Obi-Wan, because I had a beige tunic, and they're like, "Oh, Master, General." And so I said, you know what? I think I'm going to go for Obi-Wan. So I researched the costume extensively, got all the components needed, got judged, and just got approved.
Your beard looks really realistic, by the way.
So I think that helps with the Obi-Wan, selling the Obi-Wan. I have the same habit as Ewan McGregor of just kind of just stroking my beard, and just being. I think the things I have in common with Obi-Wan is just being thoughtful, and just always just kind of like analyzing things around him, being mindful of my thoughts. My family will say that I can be patient at times, and I through the Rebel Legion I formed a really good friendship with Rick, and I'm his mentor. No, I'm just kidding. Actually,
it's true.
Rick has actually taught me a lot of things about life and actually being comedy. But I just feel like Obi-Wan is just an overall great character, a negotiator, just someone who doesn't like to fly, but is a great pilot, a great fighter who doesn't like to fight. He's just an all-around great Jedi. Again, he's flawed, but he's an amazing character.
No, that's what I was thinking when you said that you can be patient, because that's what Obi-Wan was. Like, he was patient at times for short bits. It would be like, we need to think this out rationally, and then jump out a window the very next second. Like,
I was about to say that.
And hi, Jasmine, how are you doing?
I'm good, thanks.
So happy to have you on. Same question. Who are you? How'd you get into Star Wars? And what is it about Ahsoka?
I'm Jasmine. You might know me as that one nerdy fangirl. I'm a big fangirl. I'm in a lot of fandoms, but primarily Star Wars. I pretty much have been in the Star Wars fandom since I was pretty young. I grew up with the prequels. So that's what I remember seeing first. I actually don't know if I saw the originals first, but I'm pretty sure it was the prequels. I remember going to the movie theater with my family, and I'm mainly in Star Wars because of my mom. She's also a big nerd like me. She loves Star Wars, Star Trek, everything. So I got it from her. And I cosplay Ahsoka. That's literally all I do now. What's work? I don't know. Yeah, and what was the last question? Why Ahsoka?
Yeah. What's special about Ahsoka? What made you choose her? And
Yeah, that's hard. I don't think I've ever connected with a character as much as I do Ahsoka, and I think she's just like everything I want to be, and also I do find bits of me in her, but she's also like what I would like to be, and she's like an inspiration and motivation for me. Just, she makes mistakes, but she learns from them. She's a leader. She's, she has moods. She's also patient, but she's impatient. She's very human in a way, she's human. She's a Jedi, but she's not a Jedi. And she's just, she's a great, well-written character. I just absolutely love everything that they've done with her. Dave Filoni has been so great with her character. So that's why I cosplay her.
And yeah, it's awesome. And I always love because I see you guys all interact separately with each other through duets and stuff, and it's cool.
What's funny? So could we also just talk about Jasmine's Ahsoka and how far it's come. I joined TikTok I think in April, and I think her costume was face paint and like ponytails or pigtails.
Yeah,
and she's come so far with her cosplay is honestly, you probably could apply to the Rebel Legion and get approved. But and as far as
to me, she is. I mean,
yeah,
she is
really,
Ahsoka.
she really is.
I do see a couple other Ahsoka cosplayers where I was like, oh, an Ahsoka cosplayer, and I see Jasmine like, well, that is Ahsoka.
Oh, thank you.
And that's part of Ahsoka too, right? That she evolves over time. Like she's, I think, the character that in some ways evolves the most when you look at her in Clone Wars, even just within Clone Wars, like from the beginning to end, she's almost a completely different person.
Right.
Absolutely.
And then in Rebels and now Mando, it's just
and
like
we are going to break all of those down.
that's a great segue.
Yeah. So I actually wanted, since her journey kind of goes the furthest of any of the characters. So I wanted to start with Obi-Wan first. And coincidentally, I'm also starting with Jason on this one. But let's actually start the beginning, because just real quick, I want to talk specifically about Phantom Menace Obi-Wan, because he was a very different person in that film than he was. And so I want to hear all of your guys' thoughts. Jason?
Okay, so as far as Padawan Obi-Wan, you can see him impatient. You can see him making mistakes already. I think it was in the novelization, the scene where they're on Naboo and he's running from a battle droid on a speeder bike. He's running because he got his lightsaber wet or damaged, and his lightsaber wasn't working, and that's why he was running. So, and again, I think this is cut out or it's a novelization. Then Qui-Gon had to lecture him on the importance of his lightsaber, which gets mirrored, or Star Wars poetry, it gets mirrored in Attack of the Clones, where he goes to Anakin, he's like, this lightsaber is your life. He's not in Phantom Menace all that much. Obviously, he's got the big ending, but it's kind of interesting. And Dave Filoni mentions this also. When he meets Anakin, the first thing he does is call him a pathetic life form, which probably does some psychological damage to someone.
I think you didn't hear him.
Right. He was too huffing and puffing from the running in the sand. There's sand everywhere. But then, one of the things I love about Obi-Wan and is his entire journey as a Padawan to Ben is I know we're going to get there, but in Rebels, when Maul says, look what has become of you, and Kenobi says, look what I've overcome. And so in Phantom Menace, to see his master get impaled by a lightsaber and then almost lose that fight himself, he was hanging by a literal thread, and and then he used the Force to get the Qui-Gon's lightsaber and take the high ground for a split second, and then cutting him in half. He really has been a lot, and the worst hasn't even yet to come, but to see his master get impaled. And then what happens next, which is tough for Obi-Wan, is that the day he gets, I guess that was his trials, fighting Maul and killing a Sith Lord. But so the day he's knighted as a Jedi Knight, oh, and you get a Padawan too, which is just weird to me. I always thought a master. I think it's weird that Anakin has a Padawan too, but because I think a master should be the one who Padawans. But so with Phantom Menace, again, he's overcome so much, and you can see his journey of a lot of tragedies in his life in that movie.
Yeah.
Quick question about something Jason mentioned. So I could be wrong. Isn't it that if you are a knight and you train an apprentice to a Padawan to knighthood, then you can become a master?
Oh, I don't. That makes
I don't
sense.
know.
Yes, that is one of the requirements. I was
Oh,
just going to bring
okay.
that up because that was recently confirmed for us in the Star Wars book.
Oh.
I thought I had heard that, but I wasn't sure.
But yeah, and then Jasmine, your thoughts on Obi-Wan, where we meet him?
Yeah, I mean, I think he's also one of the greatest. He has one of the greatest arcs in Star Wars. I think just seeing him, in Clone Wars and then in the originals and then Rebels, he's just an amazing character to me too.
Yeah. And then your thoughts?
Yeah. So for me, like I'm looking at it more in terms of like his relationship to Anakin, because it's all about Anakin. Just kidding.
Oh, it is. It's his. It is.
Yeah, but no, essentially, like I think it's interesting to look at like the three films and to kind of see the relationship change. So in the first one, like Jason mentioned, he really doesn't care about Anakin at all. He sees him more as kind of an annoyance, like who's this pet that Qui-Gon picked up, on the road. Like we don't need a little boy, slowing us down, and who the heck is he? Um, Episode 2, he's there he has a fondness for him, but they're still not equals. And if you look at most of their uh conversations in that movie, like it's a lot of lecturing, it's a lot of like, no, don't do this without consulting either myself or the council. And then in episode 3, now they're equals, and they really, you really see that in a lot of their in a lot of their conversations and their dynamic. But Phantom Menace, it's just interesting to me how everything in Star Wars, I think, especially the prequels, is all about kind of evolution and kind of progression. And in that one, it's really, I think George intentionally made it so that uh, that they wouldn't have a strong connection. They don't have that many scenes together. The one scene where he and Obi-Wan meet, Obi-Wan has this look on his face, kind of like, okay, why am I shaking hands with a 9-year-old boy? Like, who are you? And it's not until like, I think it's not until the end of the movie that they really talk again, and it's just to tell him, well, I'm stuck with you, I guess.
Right.
Yeah. And I actually think I want to call an audible here, and I apologize. But rather than us going character by character, I think we should go era by era.
Okay. I think that would. Yeah, I agree.
Because they interconnect so much that we're going to be retreading the same ground. I wasn't quite thinking about that, but yeah, I mean, let's by that token, let's talk about kid Anakin, which, by the way, I think Jake Lloyd, he did as great of a job as you could with the material, and I wish him the best. I think it's sad what happened, but he was a little boy acting like a little boy,
Right. With a director, and no offense to George, but with a director who's really only says faster and more intense.
Yeah.
He needed a mentor and a director. And
you say that to Liam Neeson, and he knows what to do.
Exactly.
You can't say that to a 9-10-year-old kid and expect the world. But this time I'll start with Jasmine. We have a young Anakin. What are your thoughts?
I think it's just really interesting. He seems to me very innocent in the first movie compared to, to how he ends. He's so innocent. He's just so innocent, genuine. Like you can tell, I like when I saw him, I could not tell like this kid was going to become Darth Vader. That all these bad things were going to happen to him and he was going to turn, and he doesn't look like a kid who deserved everything that happened, all these horrible things. We see him meet Qui-Gon and Qui-Gon treats him well and saves him, frees him from slavery and all that. So I really enjoy the Phantom Menace. I know it's not one of the favorites and it's one of the least liked, but I think it's a really good one. It really sets up everything in terms of just Anakin and then Obi-Wan and how much they both are going to change and their relationship as well.
Yeah, and also I love the Phantom Menace. I especially love the pod racing scene. I know people say it's long. No, it's perfect. How there's no music until the end of the final lap, and it ramps up, and like it's so hype.
That's true.
I just love it personally. And then I love how Element 7 here in the chat says that young Anakin is the most authentic version of himself.
Mhm.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But how about you, Rick?
Yeah, so real quick, I apologize in advance that my analyses of Anakin are going to be more insightful than the other two characters because those are the ones I spent the most time kind of
I
brainstorming.
expect it.
So know that I have a
that's
lot
why
to say
we're
about
here.
Anakin,
That's
and
why
I'm going
we're
to be
here.
tripping. What was that? Oh, that's why we're here. So I'm going to be tripping up on my words about the other two, or maybe I'll come up with something and say something smart, but probably not. So I agree with the commenter. So, in episode 1, we see Anakin, I think, at his most kind of pure, and we see a lot of his admirable qualities. So, one, he's really smart and really talented for his age. He's, a child prodigy. He's really courageous and he's not afraid to put himself in dangerous situations, especially when those situations mean, helping other people, whether it's, doing the pod race, whether it's, flying off into the, on a Naboo speeder and into the Trade Federation ship. He genuinely wants to help people. He's really courageous in the sense that he's willing to make difficult decisions, like leaving his mom. That was not easy for him, and yet he was willing to do it because he felt it was his calling, and he knew that he could help people even more than he could if he would just stayed a slave on Tatooine. Um, he's really admirable. One thing that I really like is just he's a lot like all of us, which is that he dreams of a better life. He dreams that he has a deeper purpose. He's kind of like Luke in episode 4. The kind of the dark side to everything is that he forms these strong attachments, which is, excuse me, it's not, it's something that's really easy for us to look at in the trilogy and say like, oh no, like his attachments, but it's something that we as humans, is human nature. He has a strong attachment to his mom. He has, a quick attachment to Padme, to Qui-Gon, and so it probably wasn't the wisest decision for the Jedi to take him on and train him, having had 9 years of attachment to, to his mom essentially. But he's also the chosen one. So in the context of the story, it makes sense. Um, one scene that I really kind of am disappointed that wasn't in the movie that I think it might be on like the DVD and Blu-ray now, is a deleted scene where he's beating up Greedo. That's one of the first examples that we see of kind of his more obvious dark side, his aggression, where he is upset that Greedo essentially, said he cheated, so he starts, beating him up. But we see some of these early hints of what's going to come later. But yeah, I mean, it's just interesting to see like the first phase of what he'll become.
Yeah, and I also like how Harris Productions here says that Kid Anakin also had a lot of hidden scars too, and we kind of see those surface. But Jason,
I mean, there's not a whole lot more I can add. I as a fandom, shame on us for what happened to Jake Lloyd. He deserves better. But the way he portrayed the character with the best direction he did, he really did a good job. I mean, he was super pure. He was super innocent, always wanting to help. He built his mom C-3PO. Again, as Rick pointed out and Jasmine pointed out, with like the pod race, like he even said, I want to do this. And, Shmi was like, it's dangerous. I get so scared every time you get in one of those things. And he's like, I want to help them. Then, of course, the next scene, Shmi is like, he's meant to help you. Or somewhere within that region. But so I think as far as a character, I forget who said it. It might have been it's his purest form. I mean, I think You know what? Now that I'm talking out loud on a podcast. Dave Filoni was, mentored by George Lucas, and one thing Filoni does is that he will take a character that you know and love and do a complete opposite of how they act when they're much younger. Like Boba Fett is kind of a whiny brat in the Clone Wars cartoon.
Yep.
and he's done that other times where I can't name another character where you look at a character and you say, well, when does the change happen? Because right now he seems like a cool dude. But so I think George did that with young Anakin, where he made him a pure, just helpful, super cute, over the top, adorable kid. And you're going to say to yourself, what's going to happen to this kid that he is going to turn into Darth Vader? Because we know how the story ends. And it's just hard to believe that this young, cute kid is going to turn to the dark side. And the whole point of the whole Skywalker saga is the tragedy of have you heard the tragedy of Anakin Skywalker? Because that's what this whole story exactly. I mean, that's what this whole story is that he was a pure innocent kid who became a great warrior in the Clone Wars and was a great friend, and he would die. Well, that's not the right terminology. He would never turn to the dark side. There's no way that guy would turn to the dark side. And of course, things change. So I think Jake Lloyd and young Anakin are great. They're fine.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's in the new book, from a certain point of view, there's a story from Obi-Wan's perspective where he talks about how, Anakin left his mom, never to see her again. The person who took him died shortly after, and then he became Obi-Wan's Padawan. And in the story, he says that at the beginning, Obi-Wan would wake up and find Anakin on the sleep next to his bed on the ground, because Anakin was afraid that he'd wake up and Obi-Wan wouldn't be there either.
Yep, I heard that. Heartbreaking.
It's just super sad. All right, less sad.
So he slept on the low ground next to Obi-Wan?
It's foreshadowing.
Wow. Amazing.
All right. Hot take. Was Shmi trying to get at Qui-Gon? Hot take. Well,
I sense something there, but I mean, I don't think it's. I think it's harder to put a name on it. I do think they had a connection, whatever that might be.
For me, I felt like there was not something with Qui-Gon, but in the scene where he calls Obi-Wan and says, "Hey, check out this M count." She's kind of lingering behind him, and it almost seems ominous. Like, is she part of the overarching plan? And it's kind of like in A New Hope when Luke mentions his father and Uncle Owen gives a side glance. And at that time, George really didn't know that Vader was going to be bad. So years later, you say, "Oh, he totally knew." So it seems like I wonder if he had other plans for Shmi, because especially during that scene when he calls Obi-Wan, she's just lurking about, and it almost seems creepy. It's like, "Hey, lady, I'm on a private call here." But I don't think I sense anything with her and Qui-Gon.
Okay, yeah. Jasmine, hot take.
I don't really think so. I mean, the memes are great, but I think she was just like, I think she just wanted to know, like, you want to know more. You want to talk to somebody, but you kind of just linger there. You're kind of just like weird, and you can come off creepy too. I think she was just, like, my child is going to leave with these people, or why is my child working with these people? So I think it was just more of that. And if it was like, it could have been like playful flirting too. I mean, Obi-Wan kind of flirts with Ventress during Clone Wars too. So, and there was nothing really there. So it could just be something like that.
Also, I mean, Shmi's just taking care of her kid, this handsome young man. It's Liam Neeson. You can't blame her.
Very true.
Or maybe somehow Rey gets pregnant through the Force, goes through the world between worlds, and she is Shmi.
Ooh, I've heard that theory.
I have not heard
that theory, that Rey is Shmi, and I was believing it until the Rise of Skywalker, but I have heard that they're the same person. and through the Force and the world between worlds. Boom. But yeah.
I'll let that simmer for anyone else, but and she's like looking out because she knows what is going to happen, but can't let on that she knows, otherwise she'll alter the course. Okay. Woo, moving on. So I actually put the next bit all together because Attack of the Clones, Through the Clone Wars, and Revenge of the Sith is a solid chunk. We get a lot of development, but it's not broken up like that. So yeah, let's jump straight into it. And yeah, and if each one of you wants to talk about all three of our characters through these journeys, that would be perfect. And for this one, I will start with Jasmine.
All right.
And this also includes the Clone Wars movie where we first meet
Yes.
Ahsoka.
Yes. So what?
And the holiday special, if you want to throw that in
I've
there,
never.
go ahead.
I have never seen the holiday special, the old one. I've only seen the Lego holiday special. So
that's totally okay.
I know. So yeah, I mean, let's see. We see Ahsoka in the Clone Wars movie.
Yeah, but what's your thought on her, like overall from through this time period? Because we see her as this little girl, and honestly, she was more hated than Jar Jar Binks when she first came out.
It was.
Right.
And by season 7, she's one of the most beloved character. How did that happen?
Yeah, I mean, she kind of reminds me of Ezra. And I know a lot of people find him annoying right now. And I know that, if they end up doing a Rebel sequel or he comes out in Mando or something, people are going to end up loving him. And it's going to be Ahsoka all over again, basically. But yeah, I think, we see Ahsoka and she's, snippy at the beginning. She is annoying. But she's a little girl, she's 14. She's a teenager. She really wants Anakin to like her, she really wants to impress him and everything. We see that. So I guess I can see how that comes off as annoying, but we see her grow so much. It's absolutely amazing. I think all her arcs are amazing. We see her relationship with Anakin and how much that grows as well. And the attachment that Anakin forms with her as well. That's why we get so heartbroken when she leaves the Jedi Order. And just her character arc in the one where she gets accused of bombing the Jedi Temple and all of that. We kind of see that's where we see the big change in her. I think that's when we see her really mature. Even though, I never understood why she could. I mean, I understood why she ran away and tried to escape and all that. But I would be like, well, I'm just going to wait until Anakin proves my innocence. But I can see why she did that. I mean, maybe I would do it. I don't know. But she just really wants to prove her innocence. But we see her in those episodes, those few episodes, we see her grow a lot. And then, and then she's gone. And then we see her come back as almost like another completely new person in season 7. She's so much more mature. She's been away from the Order. She's met new people. She's seen how much the people are suffering as well because of the war. And I think that brings in a new perspective for her when she helps with the siege of Mandalore and all that.
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite arc, Ahsoka arc from the Clone Wars?
That's hard. I do like the Mortis arc. I think it's really cool to see her, see a dark Ahsoka and.
Oh my God.
Those episodes are really cool, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially, in season 7, we get to see how through her journeys, how other people who are not part of the Order view the Jedi.
Right.
Mm-hmm. And, she sees how problematic it can be.
Mm-hmm.
I still maintain if she had just stayed in her cell, they would have proved her innocence. And she kept like if she didn't open her cell, she wouldn't have found lightsabers and a bunch of people like already beat. They would have been like, oh, she couldn't have done this. Obviously it's not her, or led her to the factory or whatever. But that's besides the point.
Yeah.
It was Anakin's training that made her make bad decisions.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, it really is. She knows he would have done the exact same thing. We know that. And she just did what she learned from him. And
Yeah.
she was trying to prove herself.
Yeah, and oh man, and I can't wait till we get to Mando to hear your guys' thoughts on how that must have come full circle. But we'll get there. We'll get there. And then Jasmine, any thoughts on Obi-Wan and Anakin through this?
I mean, even with them, you can also see Anakin, how much he's grown as well, but also how much darker his life has gotten. I think it's pretty clear, but also how much worse his attachments have gotten. I think instead of the opposite, where that's what the Jedi were actually trying to do, teach him to not get attached. I just feel like it got worse and worse. I do love seeing Anakin and Obi-Wan's relationship grow. They end up being really close, and I think even Obi-Wan was, he did admit it, said he loved him like a brother, so he did obviously get attached to him as well. So just seeing all that, another two great characters and amazing arcs.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's why I wanted to put them together, because when you watch the films, they talk about being like brothers, but you never see it. They don't spend very much time with each other in either film,
Right.
But yeah, how about you, Rick?
Yeah, so one thing that I was kind of giving some thought to was just how the Attack of the Clones, how Clone Wars and how Revenge of the Sith kind of help explain like the missing pieces of Anakin's transformation into Darth Vader, and all three of their relationships and how they change and everything. So we established episode 1 was Anakin at his most pure, and we start seeing some themes pop up in the films. One of them is Anakin's impatience. So, in Attack of the Clones, we see that there's a lot of moments where he's really impatient and he's really impulsive. He doesn't really give a lot of thought to what he's doing. He just does whatever he feels like, in the moment. He's, just the things he says to Padme, like you can tell, like it's just kind of like what he's feeling in that moment, rather than like thinking about like, is this creepy? Is this okay for me to say? Obviously some of the darker moments, like killing the Tusken Raiders, clearly that was an act of pure hate and aggression and impulsivity from, of course, like the losing his mom but it's still an impulsive action. And again, he's really impatient with where he is, even though he's really accomplished, even though he's advanced for like, a Padawan, he's frustrated he's not learning quickly enough. He blames Obi-Wan for holding him back. And then we also in that film we start seeing other things like the continued issues with his attachment to Padme, the fact that he hasn't seen her in 10 years, the attachment has just gotten worse. And then we see kind of the other side of that attachment, which him losing his mom, which obviously would be a traumatic experience for anyone. But in theory, Jedi shouldn't, a perfect Jedi wouldn't necessarily be affected by that, because they wouldn't have met their parents anyway. And even if they did have a connection with someone, they would be able to sort of let them go. Just like that Clone Wars episode where I think where Barriss and Ahsoka are trapped under the rubble, and Luminara's fine, she's calm. Anakin's freaking out, and he's basically like, "Why aren't you worried?" And she's like, "Well, I've accepted that when it's my Padawan's time to go, it's her time to go. I can't do anything to change that." Anakin's completely the opposite way. He's thinking, like, I need to stop this. I can't let this happen. We see in Clone Wars, we see a different Anakin, very different from Anakin from what we see in the films. And it goes well. It also kind of feels a little bit jarring at times, because we see him at his best. We see him doing what he does best, which is he's fighting, he's saving lives. And this is a time when everyone trusts him. The Obi-Wan and he are finally equals. They're not teacher and student anymore. The council trusts him to do what he needs to do during the war. And then he has this new role that kind of brings out the best in him, which is the role of a teacher. and that for the most part goes well. Like it's they have a really productive teacher-student relationship. The problem is what Yoda essentially calls like literally the very first time that Anakin and Ahsoka meet, which is he basically says, I think Anakin will be a good teacher. I think he's going to have a really hard time letting go. And that's exactly what happens. He's not able to accept when Ahsoka finally leaves. And then we get to Revenge of the Sith. So things get take a downturn because whereas everyone trusted him in the Clone Wars, suddenly the council, Obi-Wan, they seem to not trust him again. They seem to not reward him for his actions. The one time they actually kind of give him a carrot, it's only as a tool to get to accomplish what they want, which is to spy on Palpatine. And then there's the continued, there's a culmination of the issue with his attachments. He's had so much loss. He's lost Qui-Gon, he's lost Shmi, he's lost Ahsoka, and at this point he's willing to do whatever it takes to prevent that from happening again. And he has again an attachment not only to them but an attachment to Palpatine, so he trusts whatever Palpatine says. Palpatine is, to me, I think he is as influential a mentor as Obi-Wan is. And the difference there is that Palpatine is an outsider and Anakin kind of trusts him in a different way. He knows that he doesn't have that sort of Jedi bias. And when Palpatine tells him, there's a way to save Padme, then he believes him. And honestly, there is, because, Force healing in The Rise of Skywalker. He, again, we also see his impatience. We see, that he's progressed really far. He's now on par or even, more experience than other Jedi, but he's still not able to do the one thing that he wants to do, which is the ability to save the people he cares about. Because I think his thinking is, I have all these powers, I have all these abilities, I'm literally, one of among the stronger beings in the galaxy, but I'm not able to do something as simple as saving the life of someone I care about. And that's a completely valid, kind of feeling. And that's essentially what leads to more frustration. The frustration that, again, he's just not good enough, that he's made it this far and he's still not good enough. That's he's at this point willing to do whatever it takes to get to that point where he can save the people that he loves. And ultimately it's all those things. It's his attachments, it's his impulsivity, it's his impatience, and just the kind of the trauma of everything that he's been through that kind of pushes him to the dark side.
Yeah, I like how you mentioned Luminara, because I certainly think there's a middle ground, because she was too willing to let go. She's just like, oh,
easy come, easy go.
Oh, like, bye.
They're missing. All right, let's go. And you're like, wait, don't you want to like give it an hour or something? And then also I think of the Raph and Tracer arc. Raph and it was Tracer, right?
Trace and Rafa.
Trace and Rafa.
Rafa and Trace.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Martez.
That's right. That's Clone Wars. Yes. I forgot about
that. Sorry, they just, to me, they look like not Tracer and not Sombra from Overwatch, and so I have a hard time separating that in my head. But from the way that they told their story, it was Luminara who steered whatever truck it was out of space truck, out of hitting a bunch of people and into the wall and killing their parents, and then popped up and said, may the Force be with you. I gotta go.
Thoughts and prayers.
And like, come on.
Prayers.
So yeah, there's a continuum. I think there's room to play in between those two. but that's just me.
No, that's absolutely true. Star Wars, a common theme is balance. The fact that there's these two opposing sides, and ultimately everyone kind of comes to their own conclusion about what the right way to do things is. But yeah, ultimately kind of the balance seems to be the key to everything. That the Jedi are expected to be these kind of perfect human beings and to have no flaws because they have such a huge responsibility, and they ask them to do really unrealistic things like having no attachments. And then you got the opposite end where having too much attachment and having being too human can be dangerous for someone in that position. But yeah, I mean, it's a good question to ask. Maybe there's an in between. That's honestly where I thought maybe the sequel trilogy was going, with the idea of kind of having a balance between the light and the dark. They didn't go that way, but that would have been an interesting, idea to explore.
Yeah, definitely. And then, how about you, Jason?
So as far as Attack of as far as the Clone War era, I could do an entire podcast on Obi-Wan. In fact, I have.
We
but
did.
but I got to tell you, I love Ahsoka. I think she's one of the greatest characters introduced into Star Wars, and it's kind of funny when she comes in Clone Wars. It's almost similar to the way Anakin came into Obi-Wan's life.
Mm-hmm.
Like, she was rejected immediately, where she comes out, it's like, I'm the new Padawan learner, I'm Ahsoka Tano. And Obi-Wan's like, oh, I'm not your new master. It's Anakin. He's like, what? No. There's a huge mistake here. I am not taking a Padawan. That is just slow me down. And it really is interesting to see, and it's probably intentional, but it's interesting to see how much she's grown, with Sky Guy. And one of my favorite episodes is when she fights Grievous and she calls him Grumpy, which is a little childish, but I do like that episode a lot.
He is grumpy in her defense.
He is grumpy. You got to give her that. There's so many episodes that you could talk about. So to research for this, I tried to find as many arcs as I can with the three of them, which aren't terribly that many. But there's the Citadel episode, which we actually, the three of us actually did a TikTok on that one. I must have carbon sickness because I could swear that's Ahsoka.
Your eyes are fine.
Ahsoka's hearing. But I love how she disobeyed him. And not only did she disobey him, Dad said no, so I'm going to go to Mom, who's Plo Koon, and ask if I could attend this mission. And apparently I said yes. But she came in so handy in that mission. She went in through the vent to get him into the base. She learned the secrets that Master Peel was carrying in his head. And she ended up, spoiler alert, she ended up killing, I forget his name, but the ultimate bad guy. Or the ultimate bad guy was about to kill Tarkin. And Ahsoka impales him with a lightsaber. And Tarkin looks at Anakin and says, "You trained her well." And so she's come along so much. But my favorite story arc, besides the last story arc of Clone Wars, is Ahsoka on the Run. It is so good. And I don't think that Ashley Eckstein and Matt Lanter, the scene when they're in the sewage pipe, Anakin confronts her is, by the way, that mirrors can't believe I'm saying it's an old movie because it's not that old, but that mirrors an old movie called The Fugitive with Harrison Ford.
Mm-hmm.
Shot almost, it's the poetry thing, right?
I
So
love
Harrison
that movie.
Ford, absolutely. So Harrison Ford turns to Tommy Lee Jones and says, "I didn't kill my wife." And Tommy Lee Jones says, "I don't care." And what's great about the Clone Wars scene is Anakin did care, and the acting that the both voice actors did, but also the animators, you could see the pain on Anakin's face when she's like, "You didn't come and get me." And he's like, "How would that look, huh? How would that look if I broke into the prison and freed you?" That wouldn't go over well. It was just so good. And then she's like, "Wish me luck." And he doesn't stop her. He's like, "All right." And I think that's when the relationship changed from Padawan and Master to brother, sister type of thing and friends, because she even says, "Wish me luck," and she jumps, and he doesn't. And she calls him Anakin in that scene. She doesn't. I think that's one of the few times that she's called him Anakin was in that scene.
It also mirrors The Empire Strikes Back with Luke and Vader.
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely. So continuing with that arc, there is a at the end of it when she leaves the Jedi Order, they're both backlit on like a sunset, like they're silhouetted on a sunset, and they're talking about. I think they were talking about trust. And in the Clone Wars movie, when they're on Tatooine, they're both silhouetted by a sunset and discussing the plan, and they're talking about trust. And he's like, I trust you, you're my Padawan, and I'm gonna trust you here. But then what's equally heartbreaking is when Ahsoka leaves the Jedi Order, she goes down the front steps. She goes out the main entrance in the front steps of the Jedi Temple, which we've only seen one other time. And that's when Anakin marches up those front steps with the 501st behind him. It's just kind of, again, the whole Star Wars poetry and
It's
how
beautiful.
things, it really is.
Yeah.
So as far as, Obi and Anakin, it obviously they don't mention Ahsoka in Revenge of the Sith because, well, she didn't exist at that point. But also, I think Obi-Wan knows how painful it is that she left his life. They don't really say what the time difference is, how much time has passed when Ahsoka leaves the Jedi Order and then when season 7 starts. But I'm going to assume...
You can tell by Anakin's hair.
Yeah, Anakin's hair, and I think Ahsoka's montrals. Is that what they're called? Montrals.
I call them.
I forget what they're called.
Yeah, it's montrals, and
montrals,
the part that
okay.
hangs is leku. Yeah.
But
the striping
I think,
changes as they age.
I think that the Ahsoka on the Run story arc also strained Obi-Wan and Ahsoka's friendship, because Obi-Wan never verbally spoke out about, well, that can't be, Anakin, let's go investigate this together. It was just only Anakin. So when she's reunited in season 7, Obi-Wan really doesn't say that much. He's like, it's just all business. He's like, Bo-Katan is like, every minute we waste, Maul could slip away. And he's like, we understand. Let's go over here. And, Anakin's like, hey, what have you been up to? I haven't heard from you in a while. So I thought the three of them have so many great stories. And I love the friendship between the three of them. There's a ton of artwork with the three of them in Disneyland, exchanging Christmas presents. I love the three of them. I think the Mortis arc, which I'm not going to go into because that is for scholars and for that is so deep, and I don't even know what's going on. But
we're going to discuss that when you leave.
But what's interesting about that is I love the fight between Ahsoka, and we TikToked this as well.
We did.
Between Ahsoka, Anakin, and Obi-Wan. Like, I love how the beginning, Anakin's like, what the hell is going on? He's not really into it. He's like dodging, and then he loses his lightsaber, and he closes his eyes, and you can tell it's like, all right, it's go time. And he pulls the lightsaber towards them, and then Obi-Wan appears, and he's like, any suggestions? And that's when they use the dagger of Mortis. And then Ahsoka died. Again, this is for scholars and smarter people than I am. But I love their friendship. And in that episode, Obi-Wan and Ahsoka do have a lot of, Ahsoka comes up from the ship trying to fix it. And she's like, well, you want the bad news or the really bad news? Well, how about the bad news with a little bit of optimism? And it's such a great story arc that I can only talk at the high level. But as far as Revenge of the Sith, they don't mention Ahsoka because Anakin doesn't do well with loss. And this is probably all designed by Palpatine. He probably maybe went to Master Yoda and said, let's give Anakin a Padawan so he could, I don't even know how that even came up in conversation. But I think that, again, the tragedy of Anakin Skywalker is that Obi-Wan also had attachment. He loved Anakin, and he's probably feeling some pain too that Ahsoka's gone. But it is really sad to see how Anakin falls to the dark side and how he's lost. And I'm looking forward to the Kenobi series because I'm wondering, A, if Ahsoka will be in it, and B, when does Obi-Wan find out that, oh my God, Anakin is not only not dead, but that's Anakin. That's going to be interesting. And then the last thing I want to say, going back to Ahsoka, is again, season 7, the Order 66 scene is just insane. Like, I was so stressed, and I knew it was going to happen. And Dave Filoni did it with the music and just how he framed everything. I remember when they get on the ship with Maul and they're wheeling him off, all you see here is like a little tense music, nothing great, but just a little tense music. And you see all the clones holding rifles. And based upon video transmissions we've seen, we know where we are in the timeline. I'm like, this is going to happen any second. And I just love. I could watch that scene. I've watched that scene over and over again, and I just love when she's one of the few Jedi who sensed Order 66. I think it was her, Maul, Yoda, and I think there was someone else. No other Jedi.
In the games, right?
Yeah, I think it was Cal. No, I think Cal's.
Cal's master.
Yeah.
Whose name is escaping me, but he's a Lasat Jedi.
But like I just love how when they say execute Order 66, how she is just blocking the bolts because she knew it was coming, versus any of the other Jedi, and she cuts the top and she escapes and then uses the droids and frees Rex. I am just babbling, but I just love.
She has a scene, right, where she's just like staring out, and like the Order 66 scene from Revenge of the Sith is playing.
Yeah,
like, we hear their voices, and she's kind of like going like, what is happening? She turns, and that's when it all starts.
And she also has that deep conversation with Rex about how she's only known war and the clones have only known war. And she said, well, if there's a positive about this war, I couldn't have asked for a better friend.
Right.
I think that conversation also, because it is really fresh, is one of the things that stopped Rex from acting immediately. Like he is like, I've just been ordered to kill my friend. And he's like, he can't get any message out to her other than find fives, which we all know is he's dead.
Yes.
And it's so good. Sorry, I'm just babbling, but yeah.
Oh no, you're fine. But for Ahsoka, I'm not certain if she so much sensed Order 66, but her connection with Anakin let her know, and she heard that whole, even though at that point she was just a citizen, she could,
I don't want to hear that.
she could sense what was going on over there. And
but I think,
also,
to your point, I think the relationship she had with Obi-Wan has been broken. Obviously, the relationship she had with the Council has been broken. And if it wasn't like that, she could have said, hey, you need to pull Anakin back because Maul just told me he's the key of this downfall. And she, she didn't feel like saying anything. She's like, I'm a citizen. I got nothing to gain here. So anyway, sorry, go.
Yeah, I mean, she clearly wanted, it sounds like she wanted to talk to Anakin about that personally.
Yeah,
that's what I got. But yeah, and you guys are absolutely right. It makes me think of the Matthew Stover novelization of Revenge of the Sith, Anakin's relationship with Palpatine, because like the first third of that book is the mission to rescue Palpatine,
right,
and then there's a part after the Dooku fight where honestly, Anakin is having a blast. He's like, I'm here with my two buddies. Like, this is the best. And, it was that relationship that was so poisonous because, ultimately Obi-Wan wasn't the right person to train him. Obi-Wan wasn't ready at that time. And because he had that obligation, he was an older brother versus Palpatine being a father. If Qui-Gon were still alive, he would have been that father figure and would have been the right person to really, really take care of things. Also, I am forced to shout out Volcano Cats if you're still in the chat. Long story.
I don't like volcanoes.
Yeah, I mean, I think Anakin has a hate relationship with volcanoes and sand, obviously.
Totally. Which is funny because the planet Navarro is all lava and sand, but like my last name is Navarro, so that's a weird, just kind of weird.
Irony is pretty ironic sometimes.
Yes, ironic.
But so one thing we haven't quite touched on is that last fight, the last time Obi-Wan and Anakin saw each other. Because that is pretty impactful and it hurts. And also, props to Hayden Christensen's acting, like the "I hate you" at the end. Like I feel that in my soul.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like
I agree.
And this is ultimately the end of Anakin's journey as Anakin until the very end of episode 6. But yeah, before we move on to the next area of time in Rebels. I want to hear your guys' thoughts on that. And this one started with Jasmine, I believe. So I'll start with you, Rick.
Yeah, I mean, like one thing that I just wanted to say about we're talking about the Mustafar fight, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So so even more so
And
than
Obi-Wan with a Superman pose at the top of the. I just
right.
love that. Like,
Let her go, Anakin. Let her go.
You turned her against me. Are we doing the whole thing?
No. We could.
So one thing that I will say is that, it's now that we have like the complete story, that we have like the prequels, that we have Clone Wars as well, like the tragedy of seeing that fight is even more so, is even more impactful than it was before.
Oh.
I've shown all the movies and shows to like my parents and to other people, and when it gets to that fight, after having seen like that relationship evolve over 3 movies and 7 seasons of a show, is just really sad and really tragic. I don't have any other ideas about it yet. I'll probably think of more once Jason and Jasmine talk more about it.
yeah. And Jason?
Okay. So it's heartbreaking, right? So first off, Obi-Wan knows about Padme and Anakin, right? So he goes to her apartment saying, when was the last time you saw him? And says, he's killed younglings. And so I even made a TikTok about this. He knows that after telling all this, he's going to follow her because she's going to lead him straight to Anakin, that he sneaks on board, goes to hides in the closet, comes out, see her choke Padme and let her go. And again, you have this brother-brother relationship that Obi-Wan feels incredibly betrayed. He's raised Anakin, and he even turned a blind eye to him and Padme. So it's just heartbreaking to see. But what's also unique about that scene is that he trained Anakin. So that lightsaber fight, although I feel it goes on just a smidge too long, I feel the part where I feel it goes a smidge too long is when they're on ropes swinging. I'm like, I feel like, okay, we get the point. but it's at a huge stalemate. I mean, nothing is changing. And when Anakin jumps on the little footy thing he's on, they both can't use the Force because they learned that lesson about 10 minutes ago, that they'll backfire and fall into the lava. So it took the high ground. And I tell the story all the time. I've said it on your podcast. I've said it before. But Rick and I were at a con, and Rick and I will break into Star Wars lines all the time. And I was in civilian because I wasn't even dressed as Obi-Wan. I already changed out, and he was in Anakin. And I forget how we broke into that scene. But we broke into, I think I stood on a chair and I said, "It's over, Anakin. I have the high ground." And Rick said,
"You underestimate my power."
And then he came toward me and I pretended to slice him, and he's writhing in pain on the, we were at a library. And so on
At a library.
it was a library at Comic-Con. And so he was writhing on the floor in pain in the library. Again, the con's over, so everyone's leaving, but we did generate a small crowd. And of course I said, "You are my brother, Anakin. You are the chosen one who said you destroyed us, not join them." We're doing this scene. And I'm not an actor, but I must have gotten so into character that when Rick said, "I hate you," I'm feeling it right now. I welled up. Like I didn't have a tear, but I just welled up. And then I said, "You are my brother, Anakin. I loved you." And I just met Rick 10 minutes ago. No, I'm just kidding.
We didn't know. I don't think we knew each other that.
We didn't know each other that well. That was probably like our third or fourth con.
Right.
It was obviously definitely before Celebration, but just Anakin, as a kid growing up in the 70s, you heard the rumors that Obi-Wan threw Anakin in a pit of lava, and that's why, I'm sorry, Darth Vader. We didn't know him as Anakin. Well, no, we did. Actually, in the 70s, we didn't. But we heard that's how he was thrown in a pit of lava, and that's why he wears the suit. So as a kid, you always wondered, what was that like? And now we see it. And then you also see the pain in A New Hope when Obi-Wan just reflects on the good times. He's like, he was a cunning warrior and a good friend. And again, at that point, Obi-Wan has overcome so much that he's not really thinking of the bad times.
Yeah, definitely.
Wait,
And
do they
then-
not say the name Anakin in A New Hope?
Not in A New Hope. I think they said, they in a
they say
release.
it, but at that time, Anakin is not the same person as Vader.
They don't
Right.
say A New Hope, Anakin in A New Hope, do they?
I don't think they do.
In Empire, in a re-release, they say it, saying like Anakin
Right.
Skywalker's son, and that
Yes.
wasn't in the original. But I think it's not until
Return
Jedi,
of the Jedi.
that they
Yeah,
say
I
his
didn't
name.
realize that. That's crazy.
Yeah. Again, I don't. With New Hope, George didn't. Lucas didn't know that it would be. He thought it would flop so bad. He went on vacation when it hit movie theaters. He's like, I'm not even going to stick in town. So he really didn't know where it would go.
Yeah. And Jasmine.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely love that scene. I loved it even before Clone Wars. Like Hayden Christensen, like you said, was amazing in that scene. And Obi-Wan too. But I think after watching the Clone Wars, you definitely get a new take on that scene. And I think it hurts 10 times even more just knowing, seeing their relationship, seeing how good Anakin was, and also seeing everything he went through. Watching Revenge of the Sith after Clone Wars, it's a great thing to do, but it's also very painful. But I think Jason was saying earlier just that you see how Obi-Wan is disappointed in Anakin, but I think you also see how much Obi-Wan blames himself for what's happening. I should have said something. I should have told them earlier that I knew about them. I should have done things differently. We see his regret as to that way, that's why he's like, you were my brother. Like, we know they had that brother relationship, and he knows that he could have done things differently that maybe would have helped, maybe wouldn't have. We don't know, but it's an awesome scene. I love that. I love when these two recreate it as well.
But there's that moment when Obi-Wan realizes that Anakin is lost.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh, man, it's beautiful. I love it so much. I do have to say though, that entire fight, and it's also because they were. I love it so much because at least in terms of the physicality, because Anakin is the better duelist.
Yes.
And Obi-Wan is great at defense, but Obi-Wan has the experience, and he knows I have a win condition. Anakin's trying to overpower him, right? Because Anakin doesn't. He's always been so powerful. He doesn't have to think. He'll just whatever. I can wing it because I'm powerful enough that it doesn't matter. Obi-Wan's defending this entire time, waiting for his specific win condition. That's why I love the last bit, because Obi-Wan's backing up this entire fight until Anakin jumps onto the little skiff with him, and then there is no place any of them can go. But Obi-Wan saw his win condition, and he goaded Anakin's ego into trying something that wasn't going to work for him, which I think is hilarious because Obi-Wan killed Maul from the low ground. He killed Grievous from the low ground. He goaded Anakin to jump over him, and he will do what he must.
Yeah, he didn't beat Anakin by dueling him. He beat him by recognizing his one weaknesses, which was his overconfidence, his arrogance, and kind of using that against him when that was the only thing that was left. He knew Anakin would make a poor decision, because Anakin makes poor decisions, to prove the fact that he was more powerful and he could do something. And that ultimately was Anakin's downfall.
Which
I think
is
it was
funny. I'm sorry. Go.
Sorry. I think it was also a little bit of his desperation, not just his overconfidence and wanting to prove that he was powerful. It's just also his desperation in the whole situation, which makes him not think. I mean, when we're all like super desperate and he's nervous about Padme, and I'm sure in the back of his mind he's also thinking about like, I just choked my pregnant wife, and just not thinking at all. And obviously
he's lying on the ground up there.
Yeah, he was just gonna make a mistake, and Obi-Wan knew that was gonna happen.
Yeah. But yeah, let's
sorry. I was just going to say about Rick saying his arrogance, and it's funny because Palpatine always says that the Jedi lost because or were arrogant, and he told Luke that his overconfidence is his weakness. Oh no, that was Faith and Friends. Never mind. Okay, your guys are
Yeah,
good.
Luke said your overconfidence is your
Right.
weakness.
Yeah.
The faith in your friends is yours.
But yeah, let's jump to the next part in the timeline, right? So, we're gonna jump to Rebels, where now we have Ahsoka, and she's back. And oh my goodness. Oh, you know what? Actually, one quick thing before we move on. My favorite story of anyone watching the prequels comes from Victoria Vader. She makes all the incredible Vader content
Oh
on
yeah.
TikTok. But her experience was having watched and absolutely loved um, A New Hope, and she's only watching the original trilogies, even though the prequels are coming out. But she's still young at this time, and before Revenge of the Sith came out, well, then her parents thought, okay, let's watch all of them. So they took her through um, through the first movies, but she had no idea that Anakin was Vader. So she had a different relationship with Vader than she did with Anakin.
So
And
funny.
I think she had to leave the theater during her first viewing of Revenge of the Sith, because it's a bit overwhelming. But her story, that is just the best. But anyways, jumping to Rebels, we have and of course I'm watching this live, right? I don't think we're ever going to see Ahsoka again, because she left Clone Wars and
Right.
years had gone by. She pops up at the end of season one. Um, it just blew my mind. Watching live sucks, I gotta say, because especially at the end of season two, I thought we'd never see her again. I had to wait, but
Right.
she definitely has an interesting arc, and she's a different character because of what she's gone through at this point. So yeah, let's talk about Ahsoka and her fight with Vader. We'll go to Jason first.
Yay. Um, so, it's funny. I was trying to think, because we were going to talk about Rebels. I was trying to think how I felt when she first came down the ladder, and I really don't remember being shocked or oh my God, it's Ahsoka. But I'm sure I must have. It was great that she was Fulcrum. I love, love, love. I cry every time with the reunion between her and Rex when she sees him. God, I'm crying again. Where she said, he goes, "You got old," and she's like, "Had to happen sometime, Rex." Like, I just love their friendship. But one of my favorite Rebels story arcs, and this could be a live action movie and it would be a blockbuster, is The Siege of Lothal. I love that movie, and I think people disagree with me. You got the chat going. Let's see if they disagree with me. I think that The Apprentice Lives is up there with Luke, I'm Your Father. It is so it's going to happen. Like, you see Kanan and Ahsoka probing his mind. You have the Kevin Kiner score going. You have Ezra saying, "Hey, I think I know who the pilot is," which it didn't occur to me watching it the first time that they didn't know it was Vader. They thought it was just some ace. And they said, "I think I know who the pilot is." The anger, the fear, the hate. I think it's the Sith Lord that we just met. And he just goes, "The apprentice lives." And she screams and passes out. And then when at the epilogue of that story arc, they're like, "Are you okay?" And she's like, "I'm fine." Like, she is not revealing.
Like, she's very much not fine at that
She's
moment.
not fine. She's like, "I'm fine." And she's like, "I have a question about the Sith Lord you met." And Kanan's like, "We met 2 Inquisitors too." And she's like, "Don't care about them. What about the Sith Lord?" But then one of my other favorite Ahsoka moments is her against the Inquisitors. I love
it
when the door opens. You can see by the silhouette, you know who it is.
Yeah.
She's like, "Ezra, get the youngling on board." And I think she even gives him a little wink. And she owns them. First of all, the Inquisitors are like, unexpected, but not unwelcome. And they have this fight where, like, she turns off the Seven Sisters lightsaber and takes it and throws it. It's like, "You were beaten." And I think that is one of my favorite duels. And then, of course, Malachor, which is, again, heartbreaking. It's what's more heartbreaking about Ahsoka and Vader than Obi-Wan is when she slices his mask and she realizes it's him, and she's like, Anakin, I won't leave you, not this time. And he just looks at her and he is gone. Like, he has pure hate, never coming back. His eyes are yellow, and he's like, then you will die. And he's gonna kill her. So I think that fight is just amazing. I'm No Jedi is also like a top line in Star Wars mythology, but the Malachor fight is just what I like about the Malachor fight, and then I'll pass the baton. What I like about the Malachor fight is when they meet, Vader says it was foretold that our long-awaited reunion would happen. What I love about that is that things are happening that we don't even see, right? At some point, the Emperor calls Vader to his chambers. It's like, you will go to Malachor and you will meet your apprentice. She will come to me. Yes. And there's things going on that we never even saw. And I love that about Star Wars, and especially this Rebels arc, that Palpatine, I assume was Palpatine, because Vader didn't say, I foresaw this happening. He said, it was foreseen that you would be here. So Palpatine said, your apprentice is going to be there. Go meet her, get her, and maybe she could lead us to Kenobi.
Well, you say that, but it also connects me to the end, because that scene is part of the end of the 2017 Vader run, which takes place before A New Hope. Like, Vader goes into like this Force nexus, and he's seeing a bunch of visions and stuff, but during these visions there are other panels like that are in fire that are like the things that happened. So I don't know, it's interesting. I need to kind of look into that, but how about you, Jasmine? Your thoughts on it?
I mean, I absolutely love Rebels, and I love Ahsoka in Rebels. That's my favorite version of her, I guess we could say. She's just, you've seen just how much she's grown, how, even though she says she's not a Jedi, how much of a Jedi, like a true Jedi, she is. She's much more wise. She's trying to help people by being fulcrum and all those things. And the Malachor fight is just, it's amazing. It does remind me of the Obi-Wan and Anakin fight on Mustafar. It is a little bit different because their relationship was, I think, much more deep than Obi-Wan's, because Obi-Wan really did try to not form that attachment, and I think Ahsoka really did. She absolutely loved him. It was her brother. I mean, we even hear her say that to Tracy and Rafa, right? Like, my brother trained me. So it hurts her when she realizes that that's Anakin, her brother, her former master, and all that. Just that whole scene is epic. And she puts up a great fight against him. He trained her, so you can see that. I know it's probably overrated to some people, but I Am No Jedi will forever be like so epic. And just the way she says it, I think the way that Ashley performed that entire scene was amazing. I also love what they did with Vader when I think he says like certain things and they put voices over, so they have Matt's voice and then they have the original voice, just all of that, so that you just knowing that makes you feel more pain over Anakin's fall and turning into Vader. I absolutely love that.
Yeah, when she slices the mask, they have James Earl Jones over Matt Lanter saying Ahsoka, and then when he says it a second time, it's just pure Matt Lanter. And I do, like I said, I don't remember how I felt watching when she first appeared in the show, but I do remember how I felt here. And I don't swear all that much, but I believe I dropped an F-bomb. I think it was just like, oh my God. Like, like that the Office meme where it's like, oh my God, it's happening. It's happening. Like, I was just like, oh my God, it's happening. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man. And Hey, I know everyone loves Vader's entrance in Rogue One, but to be honest, my favorite Vader entrance is that episode where he's standing on top of the TIE fighter, just slowly going
Yeah.
down, and you're like, oh no.
He uses,
Oh,
he uses the force
that
to put on the flood. He uses the force to put on the floodlights, the headlights, the high beams on the Tie Fighter. Yeah,
Which shows just how extra Anakin is.
He's always
That's a
been so
lot of
extra.
planning just to make an entrance.
That's the only thing that didn't change.
uh absolutely. There's this other in the Lords of the Sith book, Vader takes down this ship, and basically the rebels um they're just going to destroy the ship because they know they can't escape, and they've destroyed all the places where you can dock, right? So Vader basically hops out of his TIE fighter mid-flight, flies to lets it go so it makes an opening, goes into that opening, uses that to storm the ship, takes down one of the guards, picks up his comm, and just breathes into it. Into an open channel, and you're like, yeah, that's Anakin.
Yeah.
um Also, you were talking about the fight with Ahsoka and the Inquisitors. My favorite part of that fight is actually the lines from Kanan and Ezra, where Kanan's like, "Hey, man, we need to go help her," and Ezra's like, no, I think she's got this."
What about Ahsoka? She can handle herself. Yeah.
Well, but what are your thoughts on it, Rick?
Oh, on Rebels. So I
Rebels
think
Ahsoka?
just,
Yeah.
yeah. So I think that the fact that she was fulcrum shows that just how important she is as a character. So like the whole idea of like having like this mystery character that ultimately pays off at the end, that's reserved for characters that are really, really important and that you're going to get a lot of emotional satisfaction from realizing it's them. They did the same thing with Agent Callus, but that shows you just how beloved Ahsoka was with the fans by the time that Clone Wars ended, and especially with the fact that Clone Wars kind of ended prematurely. So I love the fact that she's fulcrum. I love the kind of the gap that Rebels has, like in the part that she played, which is kind of explaining like what she was doing during that time. So like not no disrespect against Obi-Wan or Yoda, but they didn't really do anything during the beginning of like the Empire. They kind of were in exile, at least not things that we knew. Yoda kind of communicated with some of the Jedi, obviously, and Obi-Wan will find out. There's probably other things that he was doing maybe behind the scenes, but Ahsoka really was, an active player in the early days of the rebellion, and I think that kind of speaks to who she is. The fact that she just can't go into exile. I mean, she's gone into exile in a sense, but she's never stopped, trying to do the right thing. Um, and that reminds me of something that we've touched on, and I think Dave Filoni recently talked about, which is, yes, Ahsoka isn't a Jedi anymore by name, but by actions, she's kind of like one of the truest Jedis that there are. She is more Jedi-like than some other people who do have the title of Jedi. And I think that's part of the reason that people love her, because they admire her, and everyone wants to be like her. At least adopt certain characteristics of her into our lives.
Absolutely.
I could honestly say, having an 8-year-old daughter, she adores Ahsoka so much that she wants to come to Celebration with me and dress up as Ahsoka. When she was much younger, when she was 6, I used to say, like, "What does Princess Leia say?" And she's like, "You're my only hope." What does Jin say? "I rebel." And then I would say, "What does Ahsoka say?" She goes, "I'm no Jedi." So I could do a whole podcast on Ahsoka. I love her.
I already have done one, and like, but as I have been on TikTok, I've met a bunch of new people, and like, I want these new perspectives. So some of them I'm gonna have to do again, but I don't have any problem with that. Once I get to the end, I'll just start over. Yeah. Okay. So now we got Rebels down. Um, let's talk about Obi-Wan in two situations, right? We have A New Hope, right? As we're still going with the timeline, A New Hope. I also want to touch on his small part in Rebels too, against Maul, and then him becoming a Force ghost. And I started with Jason last time, so Jasmine, we're gonna start
Oh
with
boy.
you.
I feel like Jason would answer this a lot better, probably.
He's
Yes.
batting cleanup, so no worries.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I feel like in The New Hope, you see him, just the aftermath of everything he went through. We see him suffering as well from what happened with Anakin and just having to go into exile, but also trying to protect Luke. Um, and I guess that goes into with Rebels, and I feel like with Rebels, to me that was kind of his final arc, even though it wasn't until Vader killed him and he became a Force ghost. But that fight with Maul and then finally killing Maul was like, that was, I think, to me, they've had such a history. And I think I saw a video the other day, a TikTok, about how intertwined their lives were, how they were almost like a dyad, kind of like Rey and Ben in a way. Just, like everything that happened, they always kept meeting each other, always kept like everything in their lives just caused them to meet until finally Obi-Wan was able to kill him. So I really like seeing that in Rebels for Obi-Wan.
By the way, do you think when they named the episode Twin Sons, like someone was like, wait a second, they're like
Interesting. I never considered that.
I didn't think about that. Yeah.
well, I just wonder if that was planned out in the past, or if someone had this weird epiphany like right before the episode, and they're like, oh my god, they're almost like brothers. They can say they're twin sons, and Tatooine with two sons, and like someone's mind exploded.
That would be amazing if they did.
From what little I know about Dave Filoni, I wouldn't put it past them.
And how about you, Rick?
Are we talking about Rebels, or are we talking about original trilogy?
Oh, both. And yeah, sorry, Jasmine, if you had anything to
No,
yeah,
go
okay.
for it, Rick.
Yeah. So I mean, at this point in the story, Obi-Wan has a huge responsibility. So he's literally carrying the weight of the fate of the galaxy on his shoulders, because he really believes that the Jedi were wrong about Anakin being the chosen one, and that they missed it by a generation. Because when Maul asks them, is he the chosen one? Obi-Wan says yes, which we know, at least according to George, is not true. That Anakin was always the chosen one. But he really believes it at this point. So it's just it's really interesting for me to see someone who's been like so broken and had so much loss, again, losing Qui-Gon, losing Satine, losing Anakin, losing Ahsoka, losing all of his friends basically. And now he's by himself, and he has this huge responsibility of training the chosen one to essentially defeat, to bring Vader back to the light side and somehow defeat the Empire. Which I don't know about his tactics about just kind of letting the family raise him and then just kind of hiding up in the mountains. I don't know how effective that is, but it all worked out, so maybe he knew what he was doing.
Well, he did want to train him a lot more, and he was not Uncle Owen was not having it.
Mm-hmm. And one thing that I always thought was weird, I think that one of the stories in A Certain Point of View, that book kind of explores it, which is the idea that why was he so adamant about training Luke and not Leia? Because Leia, I mean, from a very early age, showed a lot more qualities that would have made her, in my opinion, a really good Jedi. Obviously Leia played a huge part and ultimately did become a Jedi, but in my head, I would have trained both of them. But that's just me. That's why I'm not Obi-Wan.
I love that story because, like, Obi-Wan appears and it's like, Skywalker is coming soon, and he's like, oh, I can't wait to train her. He's like, no, not that one. And he's like,
the other
but
one.
why? He's so brash and immature. He's just like, my goodness, yeah,
It's just
that's
like
funny.
Anakin. Yeah.
Um,
So yeah, I
go
mean
ahead.
that's ultimately all I had to say about it. But I just I think it's really the interesting the point at which he is, and I really want to see this Kenobi show. I'm really curious to see where they're going to go with it and what story they're going to tell, because I've always wanted to know more about that time in Tatooine. That Twin Sons episode was amazing to watch, and I want to see more. Like, that whole era just fascinates me.
Yeah, absolutely. And I, even though it's not canon, but the John Jackson Miller Obi-Wan novel is great if you haven't read it. And hopefully we get some of those elements of like, yeah, Obi-Wan is dealing with this PTSD and he's dealing with this loss,
Sure.
and but more than that, he's always been this hero. Um, yeah, he's always had this role, and he's having to learn how to not have it, how to not do that. And he even meets people who need saving, and he can save them. But if he saves them, he brings notoriety to himself, and ultimately ruins his goal. So how is he going to deal with that? Hopefully, we get some of that. But Jason, your thoughts? Or Lebo?
So I like, or either or. So I like Twin Sons because it's a Kenobi story. I love the duel. A lot of people say it was too short. I think Rick stepped away. But being in the Star Wars costume clubs and being where we live, we often used to, before the pandemic, got invited to Lucasfilm, and they would show us. We would sit in the theater, and they would show us. Dave Filoni they would come out and they say, all right, you're here to see Twin Sons, the Twin Sons arc, and they would show 2 or 3 episodes, and then Filoni would come out and take a Q&A. So very blessed. I get it. I'm blessed. But so obviously the first question was, why was the fight so short? And you could YouTube this, but he said, at this point, Kenobi has done nothing but just meditate, watch over Luke and meditate. So he knew how to fight Maul. And you see that because Maul comes in exactly like he did with Qui-Gon. He tries to do the butt him in the face with the twin blades. Rick, did you go to Lucasfilm when they showed the Twin Sons episode?
No, I wasn't there for that one. I never saw a
Okay.
Rebel screening, only Clone Wars Season 7
Wars.
and Resistance.
Got it. So it makes sense that fight would be extremely short. But then what I love about that scene is just how gentle Obi-Wan is with Maul, and he cradles him like he cradled Qui-Gon in his arms, and
And like he did Satine.
And again, this is a person that Obi-Wan witnessed, like he was there when they happened, killed his master and killed his gal pal. So to cradle it and just say, oh, he's the chosen one. And then I assume he buried him someplace, and I'm sure wherever he buried him, that's just filled with the dark side of the Force. We'll probably cross that bridge in the Obi-Wan show.
He's in the sand.
He's in the sand or in a cave. He's probably in a cave that's filled with the dark side. Don't go in there.
I always like to think that not that Maul wanted to die, but Maul needed that end.
Absolutely.
And that's why Obi-Wan, instead of, because I fully believe that, because Obi-Wan had continued to grow. He had continued to learn. He had continued to meditate in the Force. And Maul just stagnated, I like how it's been put that he is Sisyphus pushing the same boulder up the same hill for it to roll down for eternity. And rather than try to let him have a chance to change, I think Obi-Wan fully understood this guy is also in pain, and he needs
it's time to end it.
Yeah, he needs to let go.
I agree. Going back to Twin Sons, the only other thing they'll say about it, and it's a little negative, is that I need to rewatch this area of Rebels. It just seemed like it didn't really go with the story arc of where Rebels was going, and so it just seemed like a detour. And I never knew why they took this. I don't know why they took this detour. Not only was it a detour, but never once did Ben Kenobi say, "Oh, Ezra, when you go back, don't tell anyone I was here." Right. So when he goes back to, I think they're still at Chopper Base, and they say, "Where were you?"
Yeah, he doesn't say anything. Not once
did he say, "Hey, I did meet Kenobi. He is alive." Right? It never came up in conversation. So I always thought it was a bit of a detour. As far as Ghost Ben, and I talked about this last time I was on your podcast, I have no real feelings about Ghost Ben. He's a ghost, and he's Ghost Ben. The only thing, and I said this on your podcast, the only thing I'll say is that at the end of Jedi, when they all appeared, at what point did Ben look over at Anakin and say, "Wait, I could have come back as Ewan McGregor"? Like, why wasn't this even? I didn't know we could do that. It just seemed it's just kind of funny. But as far as Ghostband goes, I don't have any real opinions on him. It's just Ghostband.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's a very spirited individual.
I, whew, yeah, he, well done. All right, so moving forward, we get to kind of the last thing we're going to talk about is we had Ahsoka come back in the Mandalorian. Now we've only seen her for one episode, but I do want to put two bugs in your guys' ears as we're talking about this, because I mean, she does not say I'm no Jedi, right? And
Right.
she talks the way that she talks about Grogu is different than we would have expected. Also, on her costume, on her hip, hangs the beads that look just like her Padawan beads. Do these have any significance? And then for this one, going to Rick first.
Yeah, first of all, like seeing Ahsoka again and seeing her in live action was just like, amazing. Like this whole season has been amazing because every episode has just been like a huge, just cameos and just really fulfilling moments for fans. Whether it's seeing Boba Fett, whether it's seeing his armor, whether it's seeing Bo-Katan and now Ahsoka. Just everything ties together. I'm a big fan of like shared universes like the MCU and the X-Men and the DC universe and all that. So seeing Star Wars kind of come together, which I mean everything's always been connected, but seeing these different shows that were seemingly telling their own story, Clone Wars, Rebels, Mandalorian, seeing them all tied together has been really amazing. And specifically seeing Ahsoka because she was, she's become one of the most important characters in the whole saga and extremely, influential of everything that happens. And so it's just been it was really cool to see her. I know that some people had issues with like her appearance, with the length of like the leku or the montrals or whatever they're called. I think my take on that is like Star Wars has a lot of inconsistencies, like a lot of continuity issues. I think that's one of, to me, like the least important ones, because there's bigger ones that that have create more continuity issues, and that one, I understand why they did it, specifically for the practicality of it. She can't it would be much harder for the actress to do all those fight scenes with long Leiku. Yes, we saw Shakti and in Revenge of the Sith and I think Attack of the Clones, but she didn't do quite as much fighting as Rosario Dawson did in just even this one episode. um, and it's just really great seeing her just kind of add more lore to the universe. At this point, I think really I would kind of consider her like the wise old mentor, even though she's not that old, but kind of the role that Obi-Wan played in the original trilogy, where she's the one filling in all the gaps and telling us, the story, the role that maybe you could say even Yoda played in the prequels and a lot of the, in a lot of the stories. She's the one that's has all this information about Grogu's backstory and kind of gives advice to characters as to should he be trained, should he not be trained. I mean, she is kind of the Jedi Council at this point. Once again, not officially a Jedi, but more Jedi like than other people. I mean, in some ways more, she has more Jedi cred than Luke does, because Luke is a farm boy who trained for a few days with Yoda and maybe a couple of days with Obi-Wan. To me, that's not, he doesn't have a ton of like, information. I think he like learns a lot of information later, like reading books and records and stuff. But ultimately, Ahsoka, I think, is the real Jedi master in the galaxy at this point. So yeah, I'm really happy to see her, and I'm really curious where this is going to go. I the rumor is she's going to get her own show, and and follow that kind of search for Ezra and Thrawn and all that. So I'm really, really excited about that.
Yeah, I fully agree. I mean, I did a post about it, but like, if you when you saw how different Clone Wars Count Dooku looks,
Yeah.
like he's like 90% beard.
Right.
Like no human looks like this. So yeah, any difference was very minor, and but I also think that there's a fair amount of people that didn't watch Rebels who are watching The Mandalorian,
Yeah.
and so their last view of Ahsoka, maybe from Clone Wars, maybe from the Clone Wars movie in 2008 or whenever, you know, because even when you watch her in Rebels, for instance, people say, "Oh, she didn't use the reverse grip that much." She doesn't use it in Rebels all that much. Um, and there's a lot of things like that, but I personally loved it. Jason,
And you're
what are
right,
your
everything
thoughts?
in the cartoons is kind of stylized, it's not really how they look. It's you're looking at them through a certain like lens or something. Like even Anakin's scar in the cartoons, his scar it looks like it's a squiggly line, whereas in the films it's a straight line pretty much. So little things like that, are also continuity errors, but they're, in my opinion, they're not a big deal.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, in the Clone Wars animated show, everyone was a lot skinnier and taller. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
actually, it was funny because people had trouble with the animation style of Rebels, but when the Clone Wars came out, I had a lot of trouble with that animation style.
I had more
Um,
trouble with that than I did Rebels.
yeah,
Same here.
Rebels, they looked like real people, you
Yeah.
know. So, yeah, I don't know. It's just translation, but yeah, Jason.
Um, so as far as the physical thing, the fandom just sometimes they just always need to pick and nitpick at things. And that was this episode. Last episode was, I forget, this past episode was Boba Fett's weight, Grogu eating eggs. But anyway, loved seeing her. I mean, honestly, I'm surprised they threw in the first second. Like, I thought maybe they'd lead up to it or something, but like the lightsaber ignites, and I'm like, oh, and I think again, this was a show, this was Thanksgiving. Was this Thanksgiving?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, so I watched it live. I usually watch it in the morning, but I watched it at midnight, and it's by myself this time, but I believe I dropped an F-bomb saying, oh, frig, here we go. It was so good. I just had this thought while Rick was talking that I said earlier how her and Obi-Wan's relationship got strained because he didn't speak up when she was accused of murder. She seemed very Obi-Wan-ish in this. Just very calm, mindful of her thoughts. And I think over time, she probably forgave Obi-Wan and realized that anger leads to hate and hate leads to suffering. So this is the way Obi-Wan not forgave Maul, but just gave him peace. I think at some point whether she meets him in the Obi-Wan show or she met the Force Ghost, I think she made peace with Obi-Wan. So I loved how mindful she was. But I also loved how playful she was. And again, that's a Kenobi type of thing where the Mandalorian is like, hey kid, get the rock. And she's like, Grogu. And she was just great. It was great seeing her live. Again, I've said this about this whole entire season. Love seeing all these old characters. Where are we going with it? Is it just a launching pad for their own show? Is it like, tell me something, what we're doing with these characters? So I don't know what we're doing with Ahsoka, but God, I really do want to see more of her. And then, of course, this wasn't in your outline, but then, of course, her appearance in The Rise of Skywalker, which is just a ghost voice, which means eventually, at some point in her time, she needs to die. But
Not necessarily.
that's true.
Dave
like-
Filoni keeps refusing to say that.
Yeah, he
for
does.
one.
And in the novelization for The Rise of Skywalker, there's something written about how Rey senses these voices, and there's a specific line that says she sensed that most of them were dead, but not all of them. Something I'm paraphrasing.
I'll just say one more thing. It's just like a little backstory with me. So again, once in a while we'd get invited to Lucasfilm and see screenings. And one time we saw, I think it might have been like maybe the start of the last season. So we saw the first few episodes. And at the end, to take a Q&A, I raised my hand. He didn't call me, but he kept on getting tired of people asking if Ahsoka was still alive. And so what I was going to say, if I got called, which I didn't, I was going to say, hey, I'm not going to ask you if Ahsoka's still alive. I just want to know, have you seen Ashley Eckstein lately? And how is she? Is she still on the payroll? Like, what? Has she been around? But yeah.
That's awesome. I love it. And last but certainly not least, Jasmine.
Yeah, I mean, I was super excited, obviously, to see her. I definitely did not think we were going to see her in the first minute. So I was definitely caught off guard. But it was absolutely amazing and everything I wanted her to be. Um, I do kind of want to talk about what Jason was saying, that she like forgave Obi-Wan. I do feel like in this episode of The Mandalorian, I feel like she forgave a lot of people, a lot of things in her life, and that's why she's so calm. I also believe that that's why she wasn't like, I'm not a Jedi, Mando. Like, I'm not going to train him because I'm not a Jedi. Was because I feel like she, at this point, has forgiven the order for everything that happened. She's also forgiven herself and just come to terms with everything. Like, okay, like, yeah, I left the order, but I'm still technically like a Jedi. Like, you know, I feel like that's why she just seems so at peace in this episode. And just so put together, so wise, so calm. And that's why I felt she was so willing to help Din and Grogu, and just finding out everything about Grogu. And I think her connection with Grogu, you know, like he was being trained, and you know, he was saved in Order 66, and she, you know, had that connection with him because she, you know, she lived through that as well. And also meeting, you know, another Jedi, another force sensitive person. So I absolutely loved her. I also think like her outfit kind of gave off that vibe of like, I'm more it's very different from all her other outfits, I think. We see, it seems more like, to me, more wise, more not as fighter as, yeah, it's not, you know, like she's always like, you know, like in the season 7 where she tells Rex, you know, like, we were trained to be keepers of the peace, but all she's been is a soldier. And all her outfits, even in Rebels, I always felt it was very soldier like, you know, very tight, and you know, all the pieces and everything. And this one was much more, just more relaxed. It felt more peaceful. Even her outfit felt more peaceful. So I just felt like we saw her as a person that has forgiven everything that's happened in her life. And even the way she talks about Anakin and all of that, you know, like, yeah, she's sad when she's like, I've seen what attachments have done to fully trained Jedi Knights and all that, but I feel like she's come at peace with what happened, and just by carrying, you know, her Padawan beads, or what people think are her Padawan beads, all that. Absolutely, I've seen this episode like 1,000 times already. Yeah.
So where did she get the beads, and why does she carry them now?
Maybe she went back to the temple. Or maybe
I
she
read
had
somewhere
them made.
that Anakin did give them back to her in season 7.
Maybe they were under the.
I don't know.
in the lightsaber case.
Yeah, maybe it was in the lightsaber case under the padding. I think what it means is just always remember where you came from. Like, yeah, just remember your start, and although that journey led you to this point.
Yeah, like, remember all the good things and the bad things too. Like,
yeah,
that it made her who she is, and
right.
I think she just accepted that.
I wouldn't be who I am without
Mm-hmm.
where I started from.
I mean, my interpretation, obviously, if this isn't anything canon or anything, I do make sure I tell that. The way I interpreted when I saw it, because, you know, I was kind of expecting the "I'm no Jedi" line to happen at some point, and a few other things. And the way she talked about Grogu and if she could train him sounded like the Jedi.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like her having Anakin as her master, a lot of his frustrations with the Jedi holding him back or not allowing him to have these attachments, those frustrations bled down into her, and ultimately were the catalyst for her leaving. And she felt that all, and how, you know, the Jedi weren't perfect, as she found, you know, with the whole Rafa and Trace episode, how they could be problematic. But I don't know. I think in the years after that, I think she realized, this galaxy is better with them than it is without them. That's why she has been devoted to helping. And B, when she found out for sure that that was Anakin in that armor, I think she realized, oh, they may have had a point. they, yeah, they might have. I think they might have been onto something. So while she probably doesn't call herself a Jedi, I think her views on the Jedi are probably night and day from the last time that she spoke about them. And I think that renewing respect is why she carries the beads with her, because it's significant at that time. But that's just me. Real quick, I had two questions here from the chat. One of them is where did it go? Sorry, I can't recall who said it, but when the episode started, it started out with her just murking people left and right. So the question was whether or not that is in line with Ahsoka. And second question from Isaac Church was, did it seem weird that she just attacked Mando immediately? Like she didn't even ask him why he was there or anything like that. Curious your thoughts on those two things.
Who goes first? You go first. Who talks first? You talk first. I talk first.
Sorry. Last one I started with Rick. So Jason.
Oh, hey. All right. So as far as so basically killing people, I guess is what. Like that's not the Jedi way. Well, she's no Jedi. I think like I said in the Clone Wars episode, she killed that lizard guy in the Citadel episode. So she has killed before. One of the things I didn't like about this episode was that we just started in the middle of it. So the villagers, like, who are they? What are they doing? Is this maybe a bad village? Like, do we care about these people dying? But obviously she was protecting them. So in some ways she was protecting the villagers, and also she's also looking for Grand Admiral Thrawn for a bigger purpose that we do not know just yet. I personally, if I could have been Dave Filoni, I would have started this episode almost in a flashbacky kind of way, where it started off where she threw the shoulder, the pauldron, and said your hunter failed. And then I would have, when it said the Mandalorian, the Jedi, then I would have backfilled it. Because when she threw the pauldron and said your hunter failed, I was like, yeah, dude, we know it. You guys just basically hugged like 2 minutes ago, so I'm not shocked here. But if it had opened with her throwing the pauldron instead of your Jedi failed, I'd be like, holy crap, she killed Din. But as far as why she attacked Din right away, I mean, she knows what a bounty hunter looks like, and she probably has a bounty on her. Or she also knows that she's attacking this poor village, and the leader of the village, magistrate, could have sent someone to kill her. So she knows she's kind of hunted. So she went on full defense mode immediately to protect herself. But it didn't last. I mean, once he said the catchphrase, which was Bo-Katan sent me, he backed down. She backed down immediately. So
yeah. Absolutely. And Jasmine, your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some people talk about how they were surprised that she was just killing, magistrates, soldiers left and right, kind of just full on attacking them. I didn't find that surprising. We have seen her do that before. She typically doesn't do that. Like, I know a lot of people brought up like, oh, she didn't do that to the clones, but the clones were her friends, and she, specifically states that she was not going to hurt them. But we have seen her in a bunch of other episodes, just like Anakin, like just I'm gonna get them all. And she does have her goal, which I think that's why she did it. Like she needed to get to the magistrate and tell her like you need to leave or you need to let your people go, whatever. And then in terms of Din, I mean, I wasn't surprised that she just straight up attacked him. Like Jason said, she knows that the magistrate's going to be sending people into the woods to find her and immediately kill her. So she probably thought he was going to kill her if he saw her before she attacked him. So it was just defense.
Yeah, I agree. And Rick?
I think so. One of the interesting things about Star Wars and really about any story is that it's interesting to see people do things out of character because then you have an opportunity to explain why they're doing them out of character. If you look at Episode One, Anakin, and then you look at Vader, again, there's no way you could possibly imagine that they're the same person because yeah, I mean everything that Vader does is not in character with Anakin. One thing that I know will be controversial, but Episode 8 Luke is nothing like Episode 6 Luke. They're very different people. But the interesting thing is, how did Luke get to that point? Obviously, he's completely disillusioned and just has lost everything, and that's why he's on Octo and gave up on everything. So my thing with Ahsoka is like, yeah, maybe that's not in character for her, but it's interesting because now there's an opportunity to explain why. Now I don't know if she killed anyone in Rebels. I can't remember. I don't think she did. But now there's like maybe like an opportunity for a comic or a book that takes place between Rebels and Mando that explains why that's that change in her just perspective on the world. Where what, like maybe it is okay to kill sometimes for the greater good.
Yeah. And then for me, where I come down on it, like it's obviously these people are going to change, but we can see their trajectory beforehand, and as long as you can chart that, it works. Like you mentioned Luke in Episode 8, I find it shocking how many people see the problems with the Jedi organization in the prequels, and I hear people joke and say like, oh, the Jedi got what they deserved or whatever. Luke restarts the Jedi, runs into the exact same problem, decides, yeah, the Jedi need to end, and people are like, what? Like the same people, like you can't. I mean, it's the same. I don't know. And I also made a video warning people today because if we see Ezra, he was 17 the last time we saw him. He's going to be 29 the next time.
Right.
He's not going to be the same person. He's going to have
Right.
change between 17 and 29. At least I hope, unless he has some sort of condition. But
Also, his hair might not be blue.
I mean, we don't know, but seeing Ahsoka, like Ahsoka didn't kill the clones because she knew them. Like these particular clones volunteered to
Right.
go with her on this crazy mission, and they loved her enough that they painted their helmets to represent her. Like these weren't just
loyalty means
random.
everything to them.
Yeah, these weren't just random people. For one, the second one, on two different occasions, she has jumped into a group of Mandalorians and taken all of their heads.
Yeah.
So she did that once with Death Watch with Lux Monteri, jumped
Yep.
in the middle, 4 heads.
Yep.
And she did that again in the Siege of Mandalore episode. And so my thing is, when she walks up and talks to the magistrate, she makes it clear, like you can tell by context that this isn't the first time that they've spoken.
Right.
Maybe there was warnings, but they sent people out to kill her, and she ended that. And then if you just threaten this powerful magistrate, and then a Mandalorian bounty hunter is walking around the following day, I feel like the assumption is okay. And also, she didn't try to take his head off, which she could have done. So maybe she was giving him a slight chance, I don't know.
Real quick, since you guys brought up the magistrate, apparently the hair and makeup person for the magistrate revealed that she was from Dathomir and maybe she was a Night Sister or something. That's not canon. It's just,
I've
but it
heard
might
that
have been
too,
a
that
leak.
she might have been a survivor of Dathomir.
Right.
Oh my goodness, that is cool, because
Mhm.
there was a recent book that came out. It was Stories from the Clone Wars. It was mostly arcs that we've seen before, but it was told by a different person's perspective. But the last one is by a survivor of Dathomir, and it's something that was never on the Clone Wars. So it's interesting because the two they could possibly be connected. I just think it's fascinating. Okay, so we've covered our characters and going through. So now, as we're coming towards the end, I gotta ask if you could greenlight any project for your character, what would you do? Start with Jason. So I'm going with
Okay.
Jasmine.
Oh man, that's hard. I mean, I would definitely love to see more Ahsoka, although like I'll always have that fear of like if we do too much, are we gonna ruin her character? Um, but I mean I would definitely love to see her in a show, have her a show. I do think Star Wars is better on TV than movies. There's just so much more you
Mm-hmm.
can do. So I would definitely prefer a show than a movie for her. I would love to see like the time between Rebels and uh, The Mandalorian, and after The Mandalorian, all the way up to Rise of Skywalker. Like, what is she doing that whole time? Why did Rey hear her voice? Was she still alive? Was she not? Like, what happened during all that time? Just everything that she did. I would love to see that.
That'd be cool. So would this be like Ahsoka and Sabine like travel show?
That would
Or
be awesome. I mean, the two of my favorite characters. So I would definitely love to see them working together to find Ezra and Thrawn. So that would be awesome.
and are you gonna cosplay Sabine at some point? It's just sorry, random question.
Maybe.
Okay, okay, all right. And Rick.
Yeah. So one idea that I have is the fact that Clone Wars is over, but the reality of it is that there were a lot of Clone Wars arcs that never happened. They were supposed to be, I think, in probably season 7, and then it got canceled, and then season 7 ended up being a little bit different than what was originally planned, and I think that they were planning for more seasons on top of that. So there's stuff that was just never made that I would really like to see, but specifically with Anakin, even though the show is over, I see no reason why they can't make more stories that kind of fit in somewhere in that, 2, 3 year gap. I mean, cartoons do that all the time, right? Like the show runs for a while, but then they do like little mini movies that either are on TV or came out on DVD or something, that are part of the show, but they're something extra. So like, to me, like it's like we can make more Clone Wars. Like it doesn't have to be like an ongoing season or a show or anything, but it can be like little adventures here and there with Anakin and Ahsoka and Obi-Wan. Um, I mean, that maybe that'll happen someday. I don't know that it'll happen anytime soon because we just had season 7 and they're focusing on other things. I think what's more realistic that I would really like is just flashbacks. I
Mhm.
think there's an opportunity for flashbacks in The Mandalorian, or if Ahsoka gets her own show, to maybe Anakin and Obi-Wan. And I also think there's definitely opportunities for flashbacks in the Kenobi show. I think it would be really weird if the Kenobi show happened and Obi-Wan never once had a flashback of Anakin and for Hayden Christensen to be in there. I think it's very likely to happen, and I hope that it does.
Yeah. Are you excited for Bad Batch? I mean, I wasn't a huge fan of the Bad Batch arc itself, but the fact that we know that this arc is taking place immediately after Order 66, because we've seen nothing of this
I'm
time
ex-
period.
I'm excited for anything Star Wars. I'm one of those people that enjoys everything. Like, sure, I have my favorites, but I think if it's Star Wars, I'll like it. I love the Ewok movies. I love the holiday special. I even enjoyed Resistance. Like, it's all good. Um, and so, like, Bad Batch, yeah, not like my top favorite characters, but there's a reason why they're doing it, and I'm really curious to see what stories are going to tell, because it's going to be more than just about the Bad Batch. If every episode was just about those 5, 6 guys, probably wouldn't be the most interesting thing in the world to me, but they're definitely going to incorporate other characters, and I look forward to seeing maybe one, new characters, and two, maybe returning characters from like Rebels or Rogue One or something. I don't know who else would be in that time period.
Okay, I'm gonna call out crazy prediction. Okay, you guys ready for it? I mean, I've actually said this quite a bit because I want Quinlan Voss to be the Jedi that answers the call. Because we do know he did survive Order 66. He has such an interesting story. He was quite an unorthodox Jedi. His use of psychometry, mastery of it, is a really interesting ability.
Yeah.
But he's just kind of he's non-conventional. He's just kind of weird and dirty and stuff. But he also has experienced the dark side too. You know, he fell in love with Ventress, completely fell to the dark side. Um, you know, she actually died saving his life. Um, and he returned to the light. I think he would be a really interesting character in The Mandalorian, to not have Grogu go be with him, but for him to join their crew as this old, you know, Jedi who's been on the run for all this time. And I want them to find him in the Bad Batch and him be part of their crew. Like if they end it with him being the person, hi, my name, you can call me Quinlan or whatever. That's how The Mandalorian ends. And then the very next show we get is the Bad Batch, and he's in it. Oh my goodness, I think it would be.
That would be really
That's what
cool.
I'm calling. It's a wild prediction because there's literally nothing at all that to substantiate it. But you heard it here first. Your thoughts, Liba? If you could have
if I could green light something, well, it's green lit. So it's the Kenobi show. It's funny. They said they had scripts, and then they had a back burner Kenobi show because I think the scripts were The Mandalorian. Like, I think Ben would travel town to town, have a problem, and solve it. So I think they had to take a look at it from another point of view. I love the friendship between Anakin and Obi-Wan and the jokes that they had with each other. And you saw it sometimes in Revenge of the Sith. You know, like I sense Count Dooku, I sense a trap. Next move, spring the trap. And then and in Clone Wars, the cartoon as well.
We're smarter than this.
We're smarter than this. But in Clone Wars as well, you know, with Matt Lanter and James Donald Taylor, you know, in the Mortis arc, where he's like, you thought the planet was weird. How about this one? I just love the humor they had, and we're never going to get that. So whether, as Rick said, maybe some sort of anthology show that just shows more within the Clone Wars or flashbacks, but they're not going to touch upon that brother humor that they're not going to say, well, Jason likes it, we must add it. I think we're not going to get that, but I am looking forward to the Kenobi show. I do hope we see Cody and Cody redeems himself. I do want to see Dexter Jester at some point. I'm looking forward to seeing Obi-Wan discover Anakin's Vader. I heard in some book or something you would know is he went to Shmi's grave and apologizing to losing Anakin. That would definitely be in there for sure. Just arguing with Uncle Owen. But I would love to see more of that brotherly humor that Obi and Anakin had. Like, I feel like we didn't get enough of them, and I want to see more.
Absolutely. Whew.
I want more, and I know I shouldn't.
All right. So for me, my pitch is going to be, this time I'm doing a different pitch because I get to do these pitches a lot. I want Claudia Gray to be the screenwriter for this first and foremost. I don't know if you've read Master and Apprentice, but it's great stuff. But I need her to write the screenplay for whatever the adventure was where Obi-Wan met Satine.
Yeah.
And it'd be like, you know, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan on this adventure. They probably get separated, or they have to protect the royalty, and you know, Qui-Gon is protecting these people, and Obi-Wan has to go find and protect Satine. Everything goes backwards, horribly wrong, but that's what makes their connection, you know. And how Claudia Gray writes, I think, would be amazing. I think I would prefer to see it animated, but it depends. Either that or do something wacky, like just a straight comedy show of that just exists somewhere, you know, on Nar Shaddaa, of like people just trying to live their life but there's all these like gangsters and Jedi randomly show up and wreck all this stuff, and you're just like, oh my god,
I
like
pitched
you're the guy that sweeps up the bar, and like people are
right.
get killed, and you have to drag them out all the time, and you're like, oh, come on, man.
I pitched that show. I wasn't a guest, but I typed it in the chat, called The Last Day of Alderaan. And each episode was following different people on Alderaan. And the episode ended the same exact way, which is like, what's that bright light? It could be a comedy, it could be a couple, it could be a bank robbery gone wrong, it could be just a rom-com, just tons of stuff. But it always ended with, hey, what's that bright light?
Oh man, now it made me sad the first time. Makes me sad now because in the book Leia Bloodline, like on Alderaan, they have a song that's called Mirror Bright, and it's singing about a moon. But Alderaan has no moons. But it's a famous song that they all learn as children, and so it's Leia as an adult, in her late 40s, thinking about all these kids who must have looked up and saw this moon for the very first time, thought of this song, and
Ow.
sorry guys.
Yeah.
Woo!
No.
Anyways, I would like to let's go ahead and end it with letting us all know, where we can find you and your stuff. If you have any closing thoughts and what you might want to see going forward. I'll start with Rick.
Yeah, so you can find me both on Instagram and on TikTok at Rick Nerdvarro. So that's RickNerdvarro. As far as my closing thoughts, just, Star Wars has been a really positive, kind of force, no pun intended, for me in my life, from when I was a kid to now. Like, it's the way that I've met a lot of great friends, like, Jason and Jasmine, and just been involved in a lot of really cool things. And it's just crazy, like, I've had Star Wars longer than I've known some friends in my life, and it's just really cool how much this simple space movie could create so much for the world and for all of us. It's definitely the kind of my happy place when I'm feeling down. It's what I use to bond with people. It's how my family and I connect. Like, my family and I, we're currently watching Rebels, and it's we it's the thing we look forward to every day when we're watching dinner, and that's something that I'm always going to remember. So it creates memories, and it creates relationships, and it creates a lot of happy moments. So for that, I'll always be grateful to George Lucas. I'll be grateful to the community. Yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah, awesome. I love it. And Jason?
So I can be found on TikTok as Lebo1 Kenobi, all one word, LEBOWAN Kenobi. And on Instagram, same thing, but a underscore between Lebo1 and Kenobi. Again, thank you so much for having me on. I really enjoy your podcast. I listen to it every Wednesday as I drive home from work. If you ever need a guest, I could talk about Star Wars for hours. So
I appreciate it.
Feel free to knock on my door. And I've said it before, you're just always such a huge positive voice in the fandom, and we need more people like you, because I just don't understand why the fandom is the way it is. Rick said it, again, back in my day, we got 3 movies and that was it. We are getting so much content in Star Wars right now, and it is a great time to live. So everyone, and I've said this on, not as a guest, but on your chat, that, you could find your Star Wars within all this content, and your Star Wars might not be my Star Wars. And people need to really let go of what they don't.
Holding on.
You're still holding on. No. They really need to let go of what they don't like. You don't like it, then fine, but you don't need to bash people about it. And again, we live in such a great time with so much Star Wars content. So again, thanks for having me. Looking forward to all the future Star Wars content and talking it. And again, Jazzy, it was really nice meeting you. It's so funny. We have a chat on Instagram, and we coordinate TikToks or whatever. But this is the first time that we actually spoke, and I just love our little trio that we have. Like, we're already talking about things in celebration. And it's and again, Rick and I have done creative things over.
I'll be in Celebration as well. So,
dude, we are totally gonna hang out.
Are you guys gonna dress up every day? Because whatever day you guys are dressing up, I'm shaving my head. I'm coming as Mace Windu.
Oh yes.
Yes.
Sweet.
I'm gonna tell you to take a seat. I'm gonna call you a citizen. And I'm cool with you, Lebo. So.
Yeah, we'll just say, but is he not the chosen one?
I hope you don't like your hand all that much.
But yes, all of us will be in Celebration, and also all of us are in California. Yay!
Awesome.
So yeah, looking forward to more stuff with you three and with you, Brandon. And yes, thank you. Done.
Yeah, and it's one of the things I really appreciate, you guys' and your content and your energy, because again, it's positive. You know what I mean? Right now, and I love how Ewan McGregor said it when he, in an interview about coming back for the Obi-Wan show, he said, the prequels weren't much liked by my generation, but the generation it was made for loved it, and I can, they really enjoy this, and so I'm super happy to come back. And I just wish people would understand, like, hey, we got a new Star Wars trilogy for the next generation of kids to grow up with and love. Right now, we have the Mandalorian, which is stylized just like the original trilogy for those fans. We had season 7 of the Clone Wars, and we're going to have the Bad Batch, which is made for the people who love the prequel trilogies and the Clone Wars. We just had this Lego holiday special for that same sequel generation. We're getting stuff for all the same generations. So rather than focusing on, well, this one's better than this one, in my opinion, don't watch it.
Yeah.
There's one made for you. Watch it. That's cool.
Be mindful of your thoughts. They will betray you. Yeah, I mean, just you didn't like it. You think Boba Fett put on weight, dude. Move on. Yeah,
dude. He's retired. He's Aquaman's dad. You see how fast he downed that beer in Aquaman? Like he's chilling these days. But Jasmine, where can we find you and your content? And any closing thoughts?
Yeah, I'm on TikTok and Instagram at that one nerdy fangirl. And my closing thoughts, I just well, first, thank you for inviting me on here. It was great to talk about these characters, and just I just I really love this community, the people I've met so many great friends that I get to talk about Star Wars about, and really go in depth into these characters, and always get to meet these new creators and stuff. And I like you guys were saying, I love that we're getting so much new content, and the community is just getting bigger and bigger as more and more content comes out. And I think that's just amazing, because all these new generations are going to get to grow up with Star Wars. It's not going to be like those old movies from whenever. It's going to be like, no, it's still happening, and they're going to get to see all this history of Star Wars, all these shows, all these books, and I think that's just amazing.
Yeah. Awesome. I love it so much. Thank you everyone for coming out. Honestly, like, you guys, I say this all the time, but 2020, this year has not been the easiest year. I actually had a really good friend pass away on this day last year. And then we had, I lost my job. We had COVID. We had a lot of, negative stuff involving people that look like me. And it's just been an interesting year all around. And so, having found this awesome weird little community. I mean, straight up, me and a good friend of mine went to Star Wars Celebration 2015. There I met people who ended up finding me a roommate down here in San Diego, and me moving down here is how I met my wife and all this stuff. It was all connected through Star Wars. So if anyone tells you it's just a movie, they're wrong. Right. And I appreciate having ways. Yeah. I appreciate having you guys as part of the community. Thank you so much for coming on, and may the force be with you always.
May the force
Oh,
be
May the
with
force
you.
be with you.
Another
Thanks
happy
for having us,
landing.
Brandon.